Greetings to dear friends, thank you for choosing the BigDark channel for teaching scientific content. Please do not forget to subscribe, like, and comment to support the channel. How do humans use 100% of their brain power? When Lucy's film starring Scarlett Johansson and Morgan Freeman was released in theaters, many questioned, is it possible that in the real world she achieved such an amazing brain ability? So that a human being can use 100% of his brain power to advance his work? The overall story of Lucy's film is that a university student is kidnapped by a criminal gang. The gang then forces him and a number of other people to swallow sealed bags of a particular drug, thus carrying illicit drugs. But one of these sacks leaks and the contents of CPH4 are released into Lucy's abdomen. The drug creates new connections between her nerve cells, giving Lucy the ability to use up to 90% of her brain capacity. A capacity that many of us do not seem to be able to achieve. The explosive growth of Lucy's brain transforms her into a superhuman, allowing her to read people's minds, learn Chinese in an instant, travel through time, mentally control electronic equipment, internal problems, recognize your body, drive easily and with high concentration, and successfully complete a fight to the death in the final scene of the film. Lucy was built on a misconception. Luc Besson, Lucy's director, decided to direct her film based on a misconception that many of us use only 10% of our brain capacity. Based on this idea, he decided to make this science fiction film. Clearly, the hypothesis that we use only 10% of our normal brain capacity is wrong. But the problem is that many people have completely believed this myth about the brain and accepted it as a fact. The animation released by TED shows that 2/3 of people and almost half of the science teachers still mistakenly think this myth is true. The battle is going on inside our brains. The world of science has proven that by increasing the connection of nerve cells to each other, we are given additional abilities. Studies have shown that musicians who play string instruments use more parts of their brains to be able to move their hands faster. Brain scans of taxi drivers in London have shown that drivers who have been in the business for many years have been able to establish a strong connection between the internal parts of their brains. In many cases, these sections provide the information needed for a quick response. This is why they not only have fewer crashes but also react accurately to events such as the constant beeping of other cars or the sudden turn of a car in front of them. These findings prove Hebb's law. The law states that nerve cells, which activate each other and produce nerve flexibility, give our brains the ability to change their physical structure and regulate their performance based on repetitive experiences, behaviors, and thoughts. Our brains face challenges, or more precisely internal struggles, every day and every minute. A struggle related to the acquisition of the cerebral cortex. Experiences, behaviors, feelings, and even constant thoughts are literally changing and shaping our brains. You voluntarily choose between two situations, using your brain or not. Any connection that is not used goes to sleep to free up the resources that are needed to strengthen communication and are often used. In closed-door experiments on a number of participants, they showed that their visual cortex had begun to reorganize in just 2 days to process sound. Brain scans have shown that even when humans are asleep or resting, activities are still performed by their brains. Not only are all 86 billion nerve cells activated at once, but they are always in a standby state and ready to respond when an electric current enters them. You have been using 100% of your brain capacity for a long time. Do people use only 10% of their brain capacity? During one day you use 100% of your brain power. Even when you are asleep, areas such as the frontal cortex that are responsible for controlling things like self-awareness and high-level thinking, or sensory areas that help people interact with their surroundings are always active. It feels warm or cold when you are asleep. It is clear that we use virtually every part of the brain, and almost a large part of the brain is active full-time. A very hungry brain is able to use energy in the best possible way. Your brain is extremely hungry and needs a lot of energy to be able to stay active. While the brain makes up only 2% of the body's weight, it consumes 20% oxygen and 25% blood glucose. In children, the brain consumes about 50% of blood sugar daily, and in infants, 60% of blood sugar. Brain size can vary depending on the size of the animal. However, greatness does not always mean superiority. The number of nerve cells in humans is higher than in other animals. This high density is what makes us smarter than other animals. However, the process of fueling the brain is complex and there is a relationship between body size and the number of stable nerve cells. Smart drugs to increase brain power. Another film that focused on increasing brain power was Boundless. A disorganized writer who had failed in his life and had little success in his work, succeeded in his work after he bought a few pills from his friend, and these smart pills significantly increased his cognitive power. In fact, these smart drugs strangely boosted brain power. But in contrast, the character of the film became strongly dependent on drugs. While there are similar drugs in the world today, the drugs depicted in both films have not yet been discovered. Smart drugs can push people to a limit, maximum tolerance threshold. Their effects are like hard work or coffee, said John Harris, director of the Institute for Science, Ethics, and Innovation at the University of Manchester. Physical exercise has the same effect. They also increase cognitive abilities. But if you were not a genius, these drugs would not make you a genius. It's not true that we only use 10% of our brains, but the fact is that we've only been able to understand 10% of our brain function, says an article published in the American Journal of Science. Further research on CPH4? The release of hormones, with the exception of paracrine stimulators, occurs near blood vessels that have many small windows through which hormones can pass directly into the blood. The science of research into hormones is known as so. The concept of hormones has been expanded to include glandular hormones, which, like classic hormones, are released endocrine disrupting but not from glands. According to the film, it is the synthetic version of a substance that pregnant women in the 6th week of pregnancy in very little. This is not a naturally occurring chemical, it's a synthetic. Corticotropin-releasing hormone, CRH, is a 41 amino acid peptide derived from a 196 amino acid preprohormone. So it's not a drug, in fact, it's a natural molecule that pregnant women produce. Frequently, hormones are stored in the cell and released after stimulation by a release stimulus. Examples of this are based on their main effects of the hormones were in the early decades of the 20th. CPH4 is a fictional pharmaceutical active ingredient from the film Lucy by Luc Besson, 2014. But not in the same name. Chemically, hormones are low molecular compounds or occasionally peptides, so-called peptide hormones. This signal substance then sets specific effects or regulatory functions in motion on certain cells of the success organs. But it's totally real, and it's true that the power of this product for a baby is the power of an atomic bomb. A hormone is a biochemical messenger, which is produced by special cells, in endocrine glands or tissues, and released into the body's circulation. However, in representatives of all non-mammalian vertebrates, it has been found that, in addition to its corticotropic function, CRH has a potent thyrotropic function. Acting with the release of the hormones is regulated individually for each hormone. CPH4 is a name that I invented, but it's a molecule that the pregnant woman is making after 6 weeks of pregnancy is very, very tiny quantities. There are two types of hormones, discovered in the century. The term hormones are formed by special hormone-producing cells. These are located in characteristic of the hormone-producing cells are enzymes that only occur in these cells. However, many hormones are produced by cells. The release stimuli can e.g. first of all, the molecule, not the drug, CPH4 that the movie showed does exist. There is a synthetic compound known as CPH4 or CPH4 or triphenylmethane. PH stands for phenyl, it has 4 of those, attached to one carbon atom. Corticotropin-releasing hormone, CRH, also known as corticotropin-releasing factor, CRF, or corticoliberin, corticotropin may also be spelled corticotropin, is a peptide hormone involved in the stress response. It is a releasing hormone that belongs to the corticotropin-releasing factor family. In humans, it is encoded by the CRH gene. This enzyme catalyzes the. It's totally real. CRH is secreted by the in addition to being produced in the hypothalamus, CRH is also synthesized in peripheral tissues, such as in the short term, CRH can suppress appetite, increase subjective feelings of anxiety. Thank you for being with us until the end of the program. Be sure to mention your opinions about the educational video in the comments section.